The bouquet nearly slipped from Ethan Brooks' hands as he sprinted
Oh my
through the
God,
crowded
look!
cathedral doors. "I'm here,"
Is that Ethan?
he called, breathing hard. "I'm sorry I'm late." Dozens of guests turned at once. The string quartet faltered. Every eye landed on the tall man in a perfectly tailored navy suit, carrying an extravagant arrangement of white roses, orchids, and lilies wrapped in ivory silk ribbons. An usher hurried toward him. "The ceremony has already started, sir." "I know." Ethan forced an apologetic smile. "These flowers couldn't wait." The usher glanced toward the front of the church where the bride stood beside the groom. "Go, quickly." Ethan nodded gratefully and hurried down the aisle. Whispers spread through the guests. "Who is he? Must be family. Look at those flowers." The bride smiled politely as Ethan approached. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "Congratulations." "Thank you." He handed her the bouquet. As her fingers wrapped around the flowers, a small cream-colored envelope tucked between the roses caught her attention. She frowned. "I didn't know there was a card." Ethan blinked. "Neither did I." Curious, she pulled it free. The smile on her face slowly disappeared. Color drained from her cheeks. Her hands began trembling. The groom leaned closer. "What is it?" She didn't answer. Instead, she read the words again. Then a third time. Finally, she looked up at the man she was about to marry. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "Tell me this isn't true." The groom frowned. "What are you talking about?" She handed him the note. His face turned ghostly white. He looked around the room as if searching for an escape. The guests immediately sensed something was wrong. What happened? Why did he stop smiling? The officiant cleared his throat. "Is everything all right?" The bride stepped backward.
No.
The single word echoed through the silent cathedral.
No.
Tears filled her eyes. "You lied to me." The groom reached for her hand. "Claire, please." She jerked away. "Don't touch me." Gasps filled the room. Ethan stood frozen. "Claire?" That wasn't the name written on the delivery order. Before he could understand what was happening, a loud voice echoed from the entrance. "Police! Nobody leave this building." The cathedral erupted into chaos. Guests screamed. Several officers hurried inside. One detective pointed directly at the groom. "Daniel Foster, you're under investigation for fraud, embezzlement, and destruction of evidence." The groom stumbled backward. "You can't do this here." "We can." Claire stared at him in disbelief. You really did it?" Daniel desperately shook his head. "They're lying." She held up the note. "This says you stole from the children's charity. It's fake. It says you used my name on the paperwork. I can explain. It says there are bank records." "I said I can explain." Claire's voice cracked. "So explain." The detective stepped forward. "We have enough evidence to arrest him." Daniel suddenly pushed past everyone. "I'm not going to prison." He ran. 2 officers chased him. The church exploded into shouting. Guests pulled out their phones. Someone began live streaming. Claire looked around at the people who had gathered to celebrate what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Now they were watching it fall apart. She slowly removed the engagement ring. Daniel had stopped at the church doors. He turned around. "Claire!" She looked at him one final time. Without saying a word, she placed the ring on the altar. Then she walked away, still wearing her wedding dress, still carrying the bouquet, still crying. Ethan watched her disappear through the side entrance. His chest tightened. Something told him this was his fault. If he hadn't delivered those flowers, if he had gone to the correct church, none of this would have happened. If you're wondering how one bouquet destroyed a wedding in less than 5 minutes, stay with me because what happened next changed 2 lives forever. And if you enjoy heartfelt billionaire romance stories with unforgettable twists, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Now, let's go back to the beginning. 3 hours earlier, Ethan Brooks adjusted the cuffs of his white shirt as he stepped out of the elevator on the top floor of Brooks Global Holdings. His assistant hurried after him. "Mr. Brooks, your Tokyo investors are already waiting." I'll be there in 2 minutes. They've been waiting for 15. They'll survive another 2. She smiled despite herself. There are also 3 acquisition contracts waiting for your signature. I'll sign them after the meeting. And your mother has called 6 times. Ethan sighed. Did she leave a message? Yes. He raised an eyebrow. Tell my son that billion-dollar companies don't run themselves, but neither do families. He couldn't help laughing. That sounds exactly like her. There's more. I was afraid you'd say that. She reminded you about tonight's charity gala. I know. And tomorrow's interview. I know. And Sunday's luncheon with the Langfords. Ethan stopped walking. The Langfords? His assistant nodded carefully. Your mother insists it's important. It isn't. She says it concerns your future. He smiled without humor. My mother has been planning my future since I was 12. The assistant lowered her voice. She still hopes you'll marry Victoria Langford. Ethan started walking again. I'm not discussing my love life in the hallway. You never discuss your love life. Because there isn't one. She looked at him. Exactly. Inside the conference room, 12 executives immediately stood. One of them extended his hand. Mr. Brooks. Ethan shook it. Please, everyone sit. The next 90 minutes passed in negotiations worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Ethan remained calm, focused, precise. Every question received an answer. Every concern found a solution. When the final document was signed, applause filled the room. One investor smiled. You've built an extraordinary company. Ethan nodded politely. My father built the foundation. And you've doubled it. Success isn't measured only by numbers. The room fell quiet. An older investor smiled. Your grandfather used to say that. Ethan smiled back. He still does. The meeting finally ended. As everyone left, Ethan checked his phone. 8 missed calls. All from one person. Grandpa. He immediately called back. The phone rang twice. A weak voice answered. Ethan. Grandpa? Are you all right? I didn't want to bother you. You could never bother me. I think. His grandfather coughed. I may have overworked myself. Ethan's expression changed instantly. Where are you? At the flower shop. I'll be there in 15 minutes. No rush. I'm already on my way. He ended the call before another word could be said. His assistant looked concerned. Everything okay? My grandfather needs me. What about the gala preparations? They can wait. The board meeting? They'll survive. She smiled knowingly. You always cancel everything for him. Ethan picked up his car keys. He spent his entire life showing up for me. He headed toward the elevator. The least I can do is show up for him. The city traffic seemed slower than usual. Every red light felt personal. By the time Ethan parked outside Morgan's floral boutique, anxiety had settled deep in his chest. The little flower shop looked exactly as it had 25 years earlier. Fresh flowers decorated the windows. Handwritten price tags hung from wooden shelves. The tiny brass bell above the entrance rang as Ethan stepped inside. Grandpa! No answer. He hurried toward the back room. His grandfather was sitting on a chair, one hand pressed against his chest. Ethan immediately knelt beside him. You should be at the hospital. I'm all right. No, you're not. I only got dizzy. You look pale. His grandfather smiled weakly. I suppose 81 isn't what it used to be. Ethan took out his phone. I'm calling an ambulance. No. Grandpa. The doctor already examined me this morning. You went without telling me? I knew you'd worry. Of course I'd worry. His grandfather reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded delivery receipt. I need one favor. Ethan sighed. I knew this was coming. The bride has been waiting months for these flowers. You need rest. Ido. So let someone else deliver them. There is no one else. Ethan looked toward the workshop where dozens of bouquets had already been prepared. His grandfather had always refused to hire extra staff unless absolutely necessary. You've been doing all this alone? I've had help. From who? The Lord. Ethan laughed despite himself. That's not an employee.
No.
His grandfather grinned. But he's never missed a shift. Ethan shook his head with a smile before looking at the delivery receipt. The bride's name caught his eye. Emily Carter. He folded the paper carefully and slipped it into his pocket. I'll make the delivery. His grandfather smiled with quiet pride. I knew you would. As Ethan lifted the breathtaking bouquet from the work table, neither of them realized that one small mistake, one wrong address, one identical wedding, and one hidden note tucked deep between the roses, was already setting in motion the greatest love story of Ethan's life. The navigation screen lit up the moment Ethan started the car. He typed in the address from the delivery receipt, balanced the enormous bouquet carefully on the passenger seat, and pulled into traffic. His phone rang through the car speakers. Mother. He hesitated for a second before answering.
Mom.
Ethan, where are you? Running an errand. An errand? Grandpa isn't feeling well. Her tone softened. Is he all right? He'll be fine. I'm delivering flowers for him. There was a brief silence. You canceled a board luncheon to deliver flowers? I did. Ethan. What? You are the CEO of Brooks Global Holdings. I know. There are executives who can do these things. There are. So why are you? Because my grandfather asked me. Another pause. She knew arguing was pointless whenever the conversation involved his grandfather. Fine, she sighed. But don't forget tonight's gala. I won't. And the Langfords will be there. I assumed as much. Victoria has returned from Paris. Ethan chuckled. Mom. I'm serious. I know. She's beautiful, intelligent, accomplished, and not the woman I'm going to marry. You haven't even given her a chance. I've known Victoria since high school. People change. They do. So could you. He smiled to himself. When I fall in love, it won't be because two families decided it made financial sense. His mother didn't answer immediately. Instead, she quietly said, Your father once believed that. And then he met your mother. Ethan laughed. So you're proving my point. She laughed too. I suppose I am. I'll see you tonight. You'd better. The call ended. Ethan glanced at the bouquet. I hope you're worth all this trouble. Across town, inside a bridal suite, Claire Morgan looked at herself in the mirror. Her wedding dress fit perfectly. Elegant. Simple. Exactly what she had imagined. Her younger sister, Sophie, stood behind her with tears already filling her eyes. You look beautiful. Claire smiled. Don't cry yet. I'm trying. You've been trying since breakfast. I can't help it. Claire laughed softly. You know mascara exists for a reason. It keeps running. The room erupted in gentle laughter. Claire's best friend, Hannah, adjusted the veil. Nervous. A little. Second thoughts. Claire immediately shook her head.
No.
You love him.
Do.
When did you know? Claire thought for a moment. When he started volunteering at my school. The reading program? Claire nodded. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He genuinely cared about the children. Sophie smiled. That's when you fell in love? I think I already had. A knock interrupted them. Claire's father stepped inside. The room immediately grew quiet. He stood frozen in the doorway. His eyes became glassy. Oh, Claire smiled. Dad. He laughed through his tears. I promised myself I wouldn't cry. You've already lost. I know. He walked toward her slowly. When did my little girl grow up? She hugged him. I've always been your little girl. He kissed her forehead. I just wanted to tell you. His voice cracked. Your mother would have been so proud today. Claire closed her eyes. Her mother had passed away 6 years earlier after a long battle with cancer. Every milestone since then had carried both joy and sadness. I know, Claire whispered. Her father smiled. You ready? She nodded. I am. 20 minutes later, Daniel Foster stood near the altar adjusting his tie for what felt like the 100th time. His best man leaned closer. You look nervous. I am. Cold feet.
No.
Then what? Daniel looked toward the church entrance. Nothing. His best man frowned. You've checked that door every 30 seconds. I'm waiting for someone. Who? A delivery. The flowers are already here. Not those. The best man noticed sweat forming on Daniel's forehead. You okay? Daniel forced a smile. I'm fine. But he wasn't. Not even close. His phone vibrated. One new message. Unknown number. She knows everything. His heart nearly stopped. Another message appeared. Don't let her read the card. Daniel's breathing became shallow. What's wrong? The best man asked. Nothing. You look like you've seen a ghost. I said I'm fine. He immediately deleted the messages. Then another notification appeared. Too late. Daniel looked toward the church doors just as they opened. A man carrying an enormous bouquet hurried inside.
No.
Daniel whispered under his breath. No, no, no. Meanwhile, Ethan had absolutely no idea what was unfolding. The GPS announced, You have arrived. He looked out the windshield. A beautiful cathedral stood before him. Luxury cars filled the parking area. Guests in elegant clothing hurried toward the entrance. Everything looked exactly as expected. He checked the delivery receipt one more time. Bride. Wedding. Cathedral. Everything matched. At least it seemed to. He picked up the bouquet carefully. A young usher noticed him. Flowers. Yes. You're just in time. Ethan smiled. I was afraid I was late. Another 30 seconds and you would have missed her. He laughed. Then I'd better hurry. The usher held the doors open. Straight down the aisle. Thank you. Neither of them noticed one crucial detail. Just across the street, another cathedral, nearly identical, decorated with white roses. Another wedding. Another bride named Emily Carter. The florist's handwritten address had smudged slightly after a few drops of water landed on the receipt that morning. One digit had become almost impossible to read. The GPS had interpreted it as the church across the street. Tiny mistake. One blurred number. That was all it took. Back inside Morgan's floral boutique, Ethan's grandfather slowly reached for his reading glasses. Something about the delivery receipt bothered him. He unfolded the duplicate copy. His tired eyes widened. Oh no! He looked again. The address. His heart sank. He grabbed his phone with trembling hands. Ethan. No answer. He tried again. Voicemail. Oh Lord! He whispered. Please let me not be too late. Claire walked slowly toward the altar. The music filled the cathedral. Every guest stood smiling. Daniel looked at her with what everyone believed were tears of happiness. Only he knew they were tears of fear. Claire reached him. He took her hands. You look beautiful. She smiled. So do you. The officiant began. We are gathered here today. Daniel barely heard a word. His eyes kept darting toward the entrance. Then, the cathedral doors opened. His stomach dropped. A man carrying white roses walked inside. Daniel recognized the bouquet instantly. His pulse exploded. No. He whispered. Claire looked at him. What? He forced a smile. Nothing. But it was already too late. Ethan was walking down the aisle. If you're already wondering who wrote the mysterious note, and why someone risked everything to stop this wedding, you're not alone. Keep watching because the truth is far more shocking than anyone inside that cathedral could imagine. And if you're enjoying this story so far, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments. What would you have done if you were Claire? Would you still have gone through with the wedding? Or would you have walked away? Ethan reached the front. I'm sorry I'm late, he said politely. Claire smiled graciously. No problem. He handed her the bouquet. The cream-colored envelope slid into view. Claire frowned. I didn't know there was a card. Ethan looked genuinely confused. Neither did I. She carefully opened it. Her smile disappeared. Her lips trembled. She read the words once, then again. The third time, the cathedral fell into an uneasy silence as Claire slowly lifted her tear-filled eyes toward the man she had been seconds away from marrying. Daniel! Her voice shook. What have you done? Claire's question echoed through the cathedral. What have you done? Daniel forced a laugh. I don't know what you're talking about. She held up the handwritten note with trembling fingers. Then explain this. He reached for it. Give it to me. She pulled it back.
No.
Claire, you don't get to call me that right now. The guests exchanged uneasy glances. The officiant cleared his throat. Perhaps we should. No, Claire interrupted, never taking her eyes off Daniel. This isn't something that can wait. Her father stepped forward. Sweetheart, what's going on? She swallowed hard. My dad deserves to hear this too. Daniel's face tightened. Don't do this. She unfolded the note again and read aloud. Claire, if you're reading this, I'm sorry I couldn't find another way to warn you. The man you're about to marry has stolen millions of dollars from the Hope Children's Foundation. He used your name on several financial documents without your knowledge. Please don't become his wife before you know the truth. Check the account ending in 4728. The evidence is there. The cathedral became so quiet that the soft hum of the air conditioner seemed deafening. Claire slowly lowered the paper. Tell me this isn't true. Daniel shook his head immediately. It's a lie. Look at me. I am.
No.
She stepped closer. Look me in the eyes and tell me every single word in this letter is a lie. Daniel opened his mouth. Nothing came out. That single moment told Claire everything. Tears streamed down her face. Oh my God! Daniel reached for her. Please listen to me. She backed away. You used my name? I can explain. You forged my signature? I had no choice. No choice. His voice grew desperate. I was going to fix everything before anyone found out. You stole from sick children. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Claire looked at him as though she were seeing a complete stranger. I spent 2 years loving a man I never knew. Standing only a few feet away, Ethan wished he could disappear. He had delivered flowers hundreds of times for his grandfather during school vacations. Never had one bouquet destroyed an entire wedding. I should leave, he muttered to himself. Before he could take a single step, someone grabbed his arm. It was Claire's father. Did you bring those flowers? Yes, sir. Who sent them? My grandfather's flower shop. The note. Ethan blinked. I didn't know there was a note. You didn't.
No.
Claire overheard him. She looked toward Ethan for the first time since he'd entered the cathedral. He wasn't what she expected. Calm, sincere, and judging from the confusion on his face, just as shocked as everyone else. You didn't write it?
No.
You didn't even know it was there? I promise. She searched his eyes. There wasn't an ounce of deception. I believe you. Daniel exploded. Claire, don't believe him. She rounded on him. I believe a complete stranger more than I believe my own fiancé. Those words struck Daniel harder than a slap. The cathedral doors burst open. 2 detectives entered quickly. Daniel Foster? His shoulders sagged. One detective held up a badge. We have a warrant to search your residence and business offices. Daniel pointed angrily toward Ethan. Him? The detective frowned. What about him? He brought the note. We're not here because of a note. Daniel froze. What? We've been investigating you for almost 11 months. Claire slowly turned. 11 months? The detective nodded. We've recovered financial records linking charitable donations to shell companies. Daniel's breathing became uneven.
No.
We also have testimony from one of your former accountants. Claire whispered. So, it wasn't a lie. No, ma'am. The detective looked at her sympathetically. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Daniel suddenly grabbed Claire's wrist. They're setting me up. She pulled away immediately. Don't touch me. You have to believe me. I don't even know who you are anymore. Guests instinctively moved back as Daniel's desperation grew. I did it for us. Claire stared at him. For us. I wanted the life you deserved. I never asked you to steal for me. I wanted to give you everything. I would have chosen a tiny apartment with an honest man over a mansion built with stolen money. Those words left Daniel speechless. If you've ever believed that honesty is worth more than wealth, hit that like button. Stories like this remind us that real love is built on trust, not money. And don't forget to subscribe, because Ethan and Claire's journey is only beginning, and their greatest challenges are still ahead. Daniel looked around wildly. Every exit suddenly felt too far away. Every face in the room looked like an enemy. He took one slow step backward, then another. The detectives noticed immediately. Daniel! He turned and ran. Guests screamed as he shoved chairs aside. 2 officers sprinted after him. The cathedral erupted into chaos. Claire stood frozen. Everything around her became muffled. She could hear only the pounding of her own heartbeat. This couldn't be real. Just an hour ago she had been preparing to promise forever. Now forever had disappeared. Her knees gave way. Before she hit the floor, Ethan caught her. "I've got you." She burst into tears. "I'm so sorry." He looked confused. "Why are you apologizing?" "Because none of this would have happened if..." "If what?" "If I had seen the truth sooner." He gently helped her sit on the front pew. "This isn't your fault. I should have known."
No.
"I missed all the signs."
No.
"He lied to me for 2 years. That means he became very good at lying." She looked up at Ethan. "You really think so?"
Ido.
"My students always tell me I'm good at reading people." He gave a small smile. Even the best teachers can't teach someone who refuses to tell the truth. For the first time since the nightmare began, Claire managed the faintest smile. It disappeared almost instantly. "What am I supposed to do now?" Ethan didn't answer immediately. He honestly didn't know. He was just a man who had accidentally walked into someone else's tragedy. Then he remembered something his grandfather had always said. "When flowers are crushed, don't stare at the petals. Plant something new." He smiled softly. "My grandfather always says something interesting." Claire wiped away another tear. "What?" "He says the worst day of your life can become the first day of your real life." She looked at him for several long seconds. "Does he always speak in riddles?" Ethan laughed. "Pretty much." Despite everything, Claire laughed too. It was quiet, brief, fragile, but it was real. Neither of them noticed Daniel watching from outside the cathedral through the stained glass doors before disappearing into the crowd. His face was filled not with regret, but with revenge. And somewhere across the city, an elderly florist stared anxiously at his silent phone, praying that his grandson was safe, unaware that the mistaken delivery had not only stopped a wedding, it had also placed Ethan and Claire on a path that would change both of their lives forever. Claire sat motionless on the front pew long after the cathedral had emptied. The wedding music had stopped. The flowers decorating the aisle suddenly felt meaningless. Guests whispered quietly as they filed outside. Some looked at her with sympathy, others with curiosity. She hated both. Her father walked over and sat beside her. Without saying a word, he wrapped an arm around her shoulders. She leaned into him.
I'm sorry, Dad.
He looked at her in surprise. "What are you apologizing for?" "I embarrassed everyone." He gently shook his head.
No.
"I should have seen who Daniel really was. You loved someone you believed was honest. I was wrong."
No, sweetheart.
His voice was firm. He was wrong. Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. "I keep thinking about Mom." He smiled sadly. "So am I. What would she tell me?" He didn't even have to think. "She'd tell you that a broken engagement is painful." Claire listened quietly. "But a broken marriage is far worse." She closed her eyes. "She's right. She usually was." They both laughed softly through their tears. Near the entrance, Ethan stood awkwardly with the bouquet still resting on a nearby chair. Several roses had fallen onto the floor during the commotion. He slowly picked them up. This day couldn't have gone any worse. "You'd be surprised." Ethan turned. "His grandfather." Ethan. He hurried over. What are you doing here? His grandfather smiled weakly. I knew something was wrong the moment I looked at the duplicate receipt. I'm so sorry. His grandfather gently placed a hand on his shoulder. For what? I delivered them to the wrong church. You didn't. I did.
No.
He looked confused. I don't understand. His grandfather glanced toward Claire. Sometimes we think we've made the biggest mistake of our lives. He smiled knowingly. Then years later we realize it was the hand of God quietly changing our direction. Ethan sighed. Grandpa, I'm serious. I just ruined someone's wedding. His grandfather looked toward the church doors where police officers continued speaking with witnesses.
No.
The truth ruined the wedding. Ethan fell silent. The flowers merely revealed it. Outside, reporters had already gathered. Television cameras, microphones, live broadcasts. Someone spotted Claire leaving through the front entrance. There she is. Claire, did your fiancé really steal from charity? Did you know? Are you calling off the wedding? Flashbulbs exploded. Claire froze. Her breathing became uneven. She couldn't move. Her father stepped in front of her. No questions. One reporter pushed closer. Miss Morgan, just one statement. Another microphone appeared. Were you involved? Claire's eyes widened. What? Your name appeared on several financial records. She looked horrified. I've never. Her voice disappeared. The crowd pressed closer. Ethan immediately stepped forward. Give her some space. One reporter frowned. Who are you? No one important. Are you her lawyer?
No.
Then who are you? A person asking you to leave her alone. Another reporter recognized his face. Wait. He squinted. Don't I know you? Ethan instinctively lowered his head. I don't think so. His grandfather smiled to himself. He knew exactly what was coming. The reporter snapped his fingers. I knew it. Several cameras turned toward Ethan. That's Ethan Brooks. The entire crowd went silent. Another reporter gasped. The billionaire? What? Claire slowly looked toward Ethan. The billionaire? The reporters surged toward him instead. Mr. Brooks, what are you doing here? Are you connected to this case? Is Brooks Global representing the charity? Are you dating the bride? Questions flew from every direction. Claire stared in disbelief. She looked from the reporters to Ethan, then back again. You! Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. This isn't exactly how I wanted us to meet. Her mouth opened. You!
I'm Ethan.
She laughed in disbelief. I know your name.
No.
He smiled sheepishly. I mean, officially. You! She pointed toward him. You're Ethan Brooks? I am. The billionaire? I don't usually introduce myself that way. Her mind struggled to catch up. You delivered flowers. My grandfather owns a flower shop. You! She shook her head. I don't understand. I'll explain. A reporter interrupted. Mr. Brooks, is it true your company donated to the Hope Children's Foundation? Ethan turned toward him. Yes. Will you comment on today's events? He looked at Claire before answering. The only thing I'll say is that today isn't about me. He stepped slightly in front of Claire, shielding her from the cameras. It's about a woman who deserves privacy after experiencing one of the most painful moments of her life. The crowd fell unusually quiet. No one expected that answer. He continued, If you have questions about me, ask them another day. Then he looked directly at Claire's father. Sir, may I? Claire's father understood immediately. He nodded. Take her somewhere quiet. 10 minutes later, the city disappeared behind them as Ethan drove toward the outskirts of town. Claire remained silent, still wearing her wedding dress, still holding the bouquet. Finally she spoke. So, I almost married a criminal. You almost did. And the man who accidentally stopped my wedding, I know, turns out to be one of the richest men in America. He sighed. When you say it out loud, it sounds ridiculous. She laughed despite herself. It really does. Silence settled again. Then she looked out the window. Where are we going? My grandfather's flower shop. Why? Because reporters won't think to look there. She nodded slowly. After another minute she asked quietly, "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "When everyone found out who you were." "Yes." "Why didn't you use your security team?" "I have one." "I figured. They would have arrived in about 5 minutes." "So why didn't you call them?" He smiled. "My grandfather would have been disappointed." She frowned. "Why?" "He says if kindness is your first option, power should never be your second." Claire stared at him. "He really says things like that?" "Every single day." She smiled. "I think I'd like your grandfather. I think he'd like you too." Neither of them noticed a dark SUV several cars behind them. Inside, Daniel sat in the back seat, his jaw clenched as he watched Ethan's car disappear into the afternoon traffic. "They're together now," the driver said. Daniel's eyes burned with anger. "Follow them." "To do what?" Daniel looked out the window. "I lost everything today." His voice became cold. "I'm not losing her too." The SUV quietly continued behind them, unseen, as fate drew Ethan and Claire closer together. And Daniel's obsession began to turn into something far more dangerous. Claire rested her head against the window as the city skyline slowly disappeared behind them. She still couldn't believe how completely her life had changed in a single afternoon. Just that morning, she had woken up excited to become someone's wife. Now she didn't even know where she belonged. Ethan glanced at her. "You okay?" She laughed softly. "Do I look okay?"
No.
"I don't feel okay either."
I'm sorry.
She looked at him. "You've apologized 3 times already. I'll probably apologize 3 more. A faint smile appeared on her face. "You really think this was your fault, don't you?" "I delivered the bouquet. You delivered flowers. I delivered the truth."
No.
She shook her head gently. "You delivered the chance for me to escape before it was too late." He looked at her for a moment before returning his eyes to the road. "I've never thought about it that way." "I have." She stared down at the engagement ring still resting in her palm. "I almost married a man who would have destroyed my life." Without another word, she rolled down the window. The wind rushed into the car. She looked at the ring one last time. Then she tossed it into the nearby river as they crossed the bridge. Ethan looked over.
No regrets.
She watched the ripples disappear behind them. None. 15 minutes later, they pulled up outside Morgan's floral boutique. Claire smiled faintly. "So this is where you disappear every weekend?" "It is. It doesn't look like a billionaire's office." "It isn't." He climbed out and opened her door. "It's the place that keeps me human." The tiny brass bell chimed as they entered. The familiar scent of fresh roses, eucalyptus, and lavender filled the room. Ethan's grandfather was already standing behind the counter. The moment he saw Claire, his warm smile returned. "You must be Claire." She blinked. "You know my name?" "My grandson has been talking about today's wedding ever since he agreed to make the delivery." Ethan laughed awkwardly. "Grandpa." "What?" "You've known her for exactly 5 seconds. And she's already smiling more than you are." Claire laughed. "I like him. I knew you would." The old man walked around the counter and gently took Claire's hands.
I'm Samuel Brooks.
"It's nice to meet you. I wish it were under happier circumstances." "So do I." Samuel looked into her eyes for a long moment. "You've cried enough for one day." Fresh tears threatened to return. "I'm trying not to." "I know." He gently took the bouquet from her hands. "These flowers have carried enough sadness." She watched him carefully separate the arrangement. White roses, white lilies, orchids. He placed them into 3 different vases. She frowned. "Why are you taking it apart?" Samuel smiled. "Because that's what life asks us to do sometimes." Neither she nor Ethan spoke. "When a bouquet is damaged," he held up a single white rose, "you don't throw away every flower." He placed it into a clean vase. "You simply begin again." Claire felt another tear escape. You always know the right thing to say. Samuel chuckled. My wife used to say I only sounded wise because I talked slowly. They all laughed. The tension in the room eased for the first time all day. Just then, the bell above the door rang again. A little girl no older than 8 walked inside with her mother. The child immediately ran toward Samuel. Mr. Brooks. There she is. He knelt down. Happy birthday, Mia. You remembered. I always remember. He reached beneath the counter and produced a tiny bouquet of pink daisies tied with a purple ribbon. Mia gasped. They're for me. They are. You said flowers make people smile. They do. She hugged him tightly. Thank you. Claire watched the interaction with moist eyes. As the little girl skipped out of the shop, she quietly whispered, He gives flowers away? Ethan smiled. Every birthday. To every child? Every child whose parents can't afford them. Claire looked toward Samuel again. He never told me that, Ethan admitted. Samuel overheard. If you tell people every kind thing you do, he shrugged. It stops being kindness. Claire found herself smiling again. She hadn't expected healing to begin inside a tiny flower shop. Yet somehow, it had. Across town, Daniel slammed his fist onto the polished conference table inside his lawyer's office. This can't be happening. His attorney remained calm. It already has. The police have nothing. They have bank records. They're fake. They have witness statements. Daniel paced furiously. I need those records gone. His lawyer stared at him. Listen to yourself. You work for me. I work within the law. Daniel laughed bitterly. The law. You should have thought about that months ago. Daniel leaned closer. If Claire talks. His lawyer interrupted. Claire is the least of your problems.
No.
Daniel's voice became frighteningly quiet. She's the biggest. The lawyer studied him carefully. What are you planning? Daniel smiled. A smile completely empty of warmth. I'm getting my life back. By doing what? You'll find out. The lawyer slowly stood. Our meeting is over. You can't leave. I absolutely can. You need me.
No.
The lawyer picked up his briefcase. You need a miracle. He walked out. Daniel remained alone. His phone buzzed. A message from one of his associates. Brooks took her to the flower shop. Daniel's jaw tightened. So, he whispered, that's where this begins. Back at the flower shop, evening sunlight filtered through the front windows. Claire had changed out of her wedding dress into a simple blue sweater and jeans that Samuel's late wife's niece had once left behind. She looked at herself in the small mirror. I almost don't recognize myself. Ethan smiled. I think that's okay. She turned toward him. You do. The woman who walked into the cathedral this morning doesn't exist anymore. She looked down.
No.
Neither does the man I was before today. She frowned. What do you mean? He leaned against the counter. This morning I thought success meant closing billion-dollar deals. And now, he looked around the flower shop. Now I think success might mean helping one broken heart smile again. Their eyes met. For just a moment, neither of them spoke. Neither noticed Samuel quietly slipping into the back room with the biggest smile on his face. He whispered to himself, I've arranged flowers for 53 years. He chuckled softly. But I've never seen 2 hearts begin blooming this quickly. At that very moment, a black SUV rolled slowly past the flower shop. Daniel sat inside, watching through the tinted window. His eyes settled on Ethan, then on Claire. His expression hardened. If I can't have the future we planned. He spoke so quietly that only he could hear himself. Then neither will you. The SUV drove away into the fading evening, leaving behind a threat that neither Ethan nor Claire knew was already closing in. The soft chime above the flower shop door echoed again. Samuel stepped out from the back room carrying 3 steaming mugs. I figured nobody has remembered to eat. Claire blinked. I honestly haven't. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. Neither have I. Samuel smiled. Exactly. He placed homemade vegetable soup and slices of warm bread on the small wooden table tucked beside the shop window.
No billionaire meetings.
He pointed at Ethan.
No wedding disasters.
He looked at Claire. And absolutely no crying while eating. Claire laughed. Is that one of your shop rules? It is now. For the first time all day, she felt something close to normal. They sat together. No one rushed. No one checked a phone. No one talked about money. After a few quiet minutes, Samuel looked at Claire. What do you teach? 3rd grade. His eyes brightened. The perfect age. You think so? They're old enough to ask difficult questions. And young enough to believe every answer. She smiled. They definitely ask difficult questions. What's the hardest one you've ever been asked? Claire laughed. A little boy once asked me why good people sometimes cry. Samuel leaned back thoughtfully. What did you tell him? I said tears don't always mean someone is weak. She smiled sadly. Sometimes they mean someone cared deeply. Samuel nodded slowly. That's a very good answer. What would have been yours? He looked toward the flowers lining the windows. I would have told him that rain isn't proof the sky is broken. Claire stared at him. It's simply how the sky waters the earth. She smiled. I think your answer is better. Ethan laughed. I've spent 34 years trying to keep up with him. After dinner, Claire insisted on helping clean the shop. You don't have to. I know. She picked up a watering can. But I want to. Samuel pointed toward a row of colorful tulips. They're thirsty. Claire carefully watered each arrangement. A few customers wandered inside. Samuel greeted every single one by name. Evening, Mrs. Jenkins. Your grandson's here today? He is. Good. The elderly woman smiled at Ethan. You've been neglecting us. I've been busy. Too busy. She wagged a finger playfully. No amount of money is worth forgetting where you came from. Ethan grinned. Yes, ma'am. Claire watched the exchange with amusement. Everyone tells you what to do. They do. And you listen. Usually. I wasn't expecting that. What were you expecting? She shrugged. I don't know. A spoiled billionaire? She looked embarrassed. I wasn't going to say it. You were thinking it. I might have been. He laughed. I would have thought the same. She smiled. You know. What? You're nothing like the person they write about in magazines. What do they write? Cold. Ouch. Distant. Ouch again. Impossible to impress. He placed a hand dramatically over his heart. I don't know if I can survive this conversation. She laughed. I haven't finished. Oh. They also say you're ruthless. He nodded thoughtfully. That part is true. Her smile faded slightly. It is. In business. He looked directly at her. But business ends the moment I walk through that door. He pointed toward the shop entrance. My grandfather taught me something when I was 12. What? He said, never become so important outside your home that you forget how to be kind inside it. Claire looked around the tiny flower shop. I'm beginning to understand why you're here every weekend. It's the only place where nobody cares how much I'm worth. What do they care about? He smiled. If I remembered to sweep the floor. They both laughed. Across town, Daniel unlocked the door to his luxury penthouse. The silence was unbearable. He poured himself a drink. Then another. His phone vibrated. One message. Your accounts have been frozen. He cursed under his breath. Another message arrived. Police searched the office. Then another. The board voted to remove you as chairman. Daniel hurled the glass across the room. It shattered against the fireplace. They're taking everything. He paced furiously. They're taking my company. His breathing became heavier. My reputation. He stared out the floor-to-ceiling windows. And now, his voice turned dangerously calm. They're taking Claire. He opened a locked drawer. Inside were dozens of photographs. Claire smiling. Claire teaching. Claire leaving school. Claire walking through the park. His obsession had begun long before the proposal. He slowly picked up one picture. You belong with me. Then he looked at another. Ethan standing beside Claire outside the cathedral. His expression darkened.
No.
He whispered, "You don't." The next morning, sunlight poured through the flower shop windows. Claire woke to the smell of fresh coffee. For a brief second, she forgot everything. Then she noticed where she was. The small apartment above the flower shop. Yesterday came rushing back. She closed her eyes. It wasn't a nightmare. A gentle knock came at the door. "Claire." It was Samuel. "Breakfast is ready. I'll be down in a minute." She washed her face, took a deep breath, and walked downstairs. Ethan was already arranging flowers. She stopped halfway down the stairs. "You know how to do that?" He looked up. "I've been doing it since I was 10. I thought billionaires only signed papers." He laughed. "I've been stabbed by rose thorns more times than I've signed contracts." She walked over. "Teach me." He handed her a stem. "First lesson." She accepted it carefully. "Never force the flowers." She looked confused. "What happens if you do?" "They break." He gently adjusted the angle of the stem. "They're stronger when you work with them instead of against them." Claire smiled. "You're talking about people." He grinned. "I might be." Samuel watched quietly from behind the counter. He whispered to himself, "Now they're teaching each other." Just then, the shop phone rang. Samuel answered.
Morganes Floral Boutique.
His smile disappeared.
I'm sorry.
Claire noticed immediately. "Everything okay?" Samuel listened silently. "I understand." He slowly hung up. "What happened?" Ethan asked. Samuel looked at both of them. "That was Maple Ridge Elementary." Claire's heart skipped. "My school." Samuel nodded. "The reporters found out you were staying here." Her face fell. "They're outside the school interviewing parents." "They're what?" "They're asking questions about you." Claire immediately grabbed her bag. "I have to go." "You can't. I have students. They'll understand. They're 8 years old." Her voice cracked. "They'll think I abandoned them." Without hesitation, Ethan picked up his car keys. "I'm taking you." She shook her head. "You've already done enough. I'm doing more. You don't have to." "I know." He smiled. "I want to." Claire looked into his eyes. For the first time since her world had fallen apart, she realized she wasn't carrying the weight alone anymore. But neither of them knew that when they arrived at the school, they wouldn't just find reporters waiting. Someone else, someone far more dangerous, had arrived before them. Ethan started the engine just as Claire fastened her seatbelt. She stared out the windshield, twisting her fingers together. "You don't have to be nervous," Ethan said gently. She let out a humorless laugh. "I'm not nervous."
No. I'm terrified.
He glanced at her. "Because of the reporters?" She slowly shook her head. "They'll leave eventually." "Then what?" "My students." Her voice softened. "They're children." "I know. They trust me." "You haven't broken that trust." "What if they think I did?" "They won't. You don't know 8-year-olds." He smiled. "I know one thing." She looked at him. "They're usually kinder than adults." Claire managed a small smile. "I hope you're right." Maple Ridge Elementary came into view. From a distance, they could already see satellite news vans parked outside. Cameras, reporters, parents gathered in small groups. Claire's shoulders slumped. "Oh no!" Ethan slowed the car. "They're here. There are more than yesterday." One reporter spotted the car. "That's her." Within seconds, cameras rushed toward them. Microphones surrounded the vehicle before Ethan had even turned off the engine. Claire froze. "I can't do this." "Yes, you can. I've never been chased by reporters." "I have." She looked at him. "What do I do?" He smiled reassuringly. "Stay beside me." Before she could protest, Ethan stepped out of the car. The questions started immediately. "Mr. Brooks, are you dating Claire Morgan? Did you intentionally expose Daniel Foster? Was this a publicity stunt?" Ethan calmly closed the driver's door.
No.
Another reporter stepped closer. Did you know the note was inside the bouquet?
No.
Are you representing Miss Morgan?
No.
Then why are you here? He answered without hesitation. Because she's my friend. Claire heard those words through the open car door. Friend. Something about the way he said it calmed her racing heart. She stepped out. Immediately the questions shifted toward her. Miss Morgan, did you know about the fraud? Will you testify? Did Daniel propose to you using stolen money? Claire's breathing became shallow again. Ethan quietly stepped between her and the cameras. I think that's enough. One reporter frowned. The public has a right to know. The public has no right to traumatize someone. Another reporter tried a different approach. Miss Morgan, are you in love with Ethan Brooks? Claire's face turned bright red. What? The crowd leaned in. Ethan answered before she could. Today isn't about rumors. He looked directly into the cameras. It's about protecting innocent children from being dragged into an adult scandal. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then the school's principal hurried outside. Claire! She rushed over. Oh, thank goodness you're here. Claire looked worried. Mrs. Reynolds. The principal hugged her tightly. I'm so sorry. Claire immediately began crying again. I didn't want the children to see this. They haven't. You kept them inside? We locked every classroom until the reporters leave. Claire exhaled with relief. Thank you. Mrs. Reynolds turned toward Ethan. You must be Mr. Brooks. He nodded politely. Thank you for bringing her. It was no trouble. The principal lowered her voice. Actually, she looked concerned. There's another problem. Claire frowned. What happened? Someone came looking for you this morning. Her stomach tightened. Who? He wouldn't give his name. Ethan's expression changed instantly. What did he want? He insisted Claire come outside. Claire looked confused. Did you recognize him? Mrs. Reynolds shook her head. No. But... She hesitated. He scared the children. Across the street, a black SUV sat quietly beneath a row of trees. Daniel lowered a pair of binoculars. There she is. The driver looked uneasy. You said we were only watching. We are. This is getting dangerous. Daniel ignored him. His attention remained fixed on Claire. I just want to talk. The driver looked unconvinced. That's all. Daniel smiled faintly. Of course. But the smile never reached his eyes. Inside the school, colorful drawings lined the hallway. Claire stopped outside room 12. She took a deep breath before opening the door. 23 little faces turned toward her at once. Miss Morgan. The classroom erupted with excitement. Several children jumped out of their seats. Claire immediately knelt to hug the first little girl who reached her. I missed you. We missed you too. Another student raised his hand. Miss Morgan. Yes, Ben? Were you sick yesterday? Claire smiled gently. No. My mommy said something bad happened. Claire looked around the room. Every child was watching her. Waiting. She sat on the edge of her desk. Can I tell you all something? 23 heads nodded. Sometimes. She chose her words carefully. Grown-ups make mistakes. A little boy frowned. Like forgetting homework? She laughed softly. Sometimes much bigger mistakes. Another student raised her hand. What do you do then? Claire smiled. You tell the truth. A quiet little girl spoke from the back. And if telling the truth hurts? Claire felt tears threatening again. It usually hurts at first. She paused. But lies hurt forever. The room became unusually quiet. One tiny voice finally broke the silence. We still love you, Miss Morgan. Claire completely lost the battle with her emotions. She covered her mouth as tears rolled freely down her cheeks. Several children hurried over and wrapped their little arms around her. We love you. It's okay. My daddy says everybody cries. You can borrow my teddy bear. Outside the classroom window, Ethan watched quietly. He smiled to himself. Now he understood why she loved teaching. She wasn't simply educating children. She was shaping hearts. Mrs. Reynolds walked over beside him. They adore her. I can see that. We're afraid we'll lose her. Ethan looked at her. What do you mean? The media. She sighed. The school board is already worried about the attention. His smile faded. You're kidding. I wish I were. They're considering letting her go? No decision has been made. But they're discussing it. Ethan looked back through the classroom window. Claire was laughing with her students now, helping one little boy tie his shoelaces, comforting another child who had started crying because she was crying. He quietly said, "That would be the biggest mistake they could make." Mrs. Reynolds nodded. "I agree." Neither of them noticed a shadow moving near the rear entrance of the school. A man wearing a baseball cap quietly slipped through an unlocked service gate. He kept his head down. His eyes scanned every hallway. Then they settled on one classroom, room 12. A slow smile spread across his face. Daniel had finally found what he was looking for. Daniel kept his baseball cap low as he walked through the nearly empty hallway. Parents weren't allowed beyond the front office. Visitors had to sign in. But during the confusion caused by the reporters outside, one side entrance had been left unlocked by a maintenance worker. It was all Daniel needed. He walked slowly, pretending to study the colorful artwork hanging on the walls. Every few seconds, he glanced toward the classroom numbers. Room 6, Room 8, Room 10. Then he saw it. Room 12. Laughter drifted into the hallway. Claire's laughter. Daniel stopped. For a brief second, memories flooded back. The first time he'd met her. The first time she'd smiled at him. The day she'd accepted his proposal. It wasn't supposed to end like this, he whispered. He reached for the classroom door. A firm voice stopped him. Sir. Daniel froze. He turned. The school janitor stood at the end of the hallway holding a mop. Can I help you? Daniel forced a polite smile. I'm here to see Miss Morgan. Do you have a visitor's pass? I must have forgotten it. I'm afraid you'll need to check in at the front office. Daniel nodded. Of course. He turned as though he intended to leave. The janitor resumed mopping. The moment the man's back was turned, Daniel quietly slipped into the nearest empty classroom instead. He waited, patiently, watching through the narrow window in the door. Inside room 12, Claire had almost forgotten about the cameras outside. Almost. One little girl held up a drawing. I made this for you. Claire accepted it carefully. It showed a teacher standing beneath a rainbow surrounded by smiling children. Across the top, written in uneven crayon letters, were the words, Our favorite teacher. Claire's eyes filled again. It's beautiful. You can keep it. I'll treasure it forever. Another student tugged gently on her sleeve. Miss Morgan. Yes, Liam? My grandma says when bad things happen. He thought for a moment. Good people help fix them. Claire smiled. Your grandma sounds very wise. He pointed toward the hallway window. Maybe that's why that man is here. Claire frowned. What man? The tall one. She looked toward the classroom door. No one was there. Only Ethan speaking quietly with Mrs. Reynolds. She smiled at Liam. I don't see anyone. He shrugged. I thought I did. Children often imagine things. She didn't think much of it. Outside the classroom, Ethan's phone rang. His assistant. He stepped a few feet away before answering. Olivia. Mr. Brooks. You sound worried. I am. What happened? The board moved today's emergency meeting forward. I told them I wasn't available. They said it wasn't optional. Ethan sighed. What now? There's another issue. He waited. The media has connected you to Claire. I expected that. Your mother didn't. He smiled faintly. I'm guessing she's not happy. She's on her way to headquarters. Already. She's furious. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. I'll deal with it later. I'm not sure you can. What does that mean? Olivia lowered her voice. The Langford family is threatening to withdraw from the merger. Ethan's expression remained calm. So? Olivia sounded stunned. So? They're worth billions. I know. And Victoria's father sits on our advisory board. I know. You don't seem concerned. He glanced through the classroom window. Claire was helping a little boy zip his backpack. I've learned something in the last 24 hours. What? Money replaces a lot of things. He smiled softly. But it never replaces peace. Olivia was quiet for several seconds. I don't think I've ever heard you talk like that. Neither have I. Across the hallway, Daniel listened carefully. So, the billionaire was distracted. Perfect. He quietly slipped out of the empty classroom. One step, then another. He moved toward room 12. Only a few feet remained. Just as he reached for the handle. Excuse me. Daniel turned sharply. Mrs. Reynolds stood behind him. Can I help you? He smiled politely. I'm looking for Claire. She immediately became cautious. Who are you? A friend. I don't recognize you. I used to know her. Mrs. Reynolds folded her arms. Your name? Daniel hesitated. My name doesn't matter. It does if you're entering this school. I only need 2 minutes.
I'm sorry.
Her voice became firmer. You'll have to leave. Daniel's smile disappeared. I said, I only need 2 minutes. Mrs. Reynolds immediately sensed the change in his tone. She took a step backward. Security. Daniel reached toward her instinctively. Before he could touch her, a strong hand grabbed his wrist. Don't. Daniel slowly turned. Ethan. Their eyes locked. Daniel's jaw tightened. You. Ethan calmly released his wrist. You need to leave. This doesn't concern you. It does now. Claire heard the raised voices and stepped into the hallway. The moment she saw Daniel, every ounce of color disappeared from her face. What are you doing here? Daniel's expression softened instantly. I came to talk. I have nothing to say to you. You owe me 5 minutes. I don't owe you anything. You ruined my life. Claire stared at him in disbelief. I ruined your life? You believed strangers over me. She took a shaky breath. I believed evidence. You never even gave me a chance. I gave you 2 years. Daniel took a step toward her. You still love me. Claire immediately stepped back.
No.
You don't mean that.
I do.
We were supposed to get married. She looked directly into his eyes. That woman doesn't exist anymore. Those words hit harder than any punch. Daniel's face twisted with anger. This is because of him. He pointed at Ethan. You've known him for 1 day. Claire answered quietly. And in 1 day, she looked at Ethan. He's shown me more honesty than you did in 2 years. Daniel snapped. He lunged toward Ethan. Without warning, he swung his fist. Ethan stepped aside. Daniel's momentum carried him forward. He stumbled into the lockers with a loud crash. Teachers rushed into the hallway. Children screamed inside nearby classrooms. Mrs. Reynolds immediately shouted, "Call the police!" Daniel looked around wildly. He realized he'd lost control. Again, he glared at Ethan. This isn't over. Then he turned and ran toward the rear exit. By the time security reached the hallway, he was gone. Claire's entire body began shaking. Ethan looked at her carefully. Are you all right? She tried to answer. Instead, she burst into tears. Without thinking, Ethan gently pulled her into his arms. You don't have to be afraid. She clung to him, unable to speak. Across the hallway, several teachers watched the scene unfold. One whispered to another, I've never seen anyone calm her that quickly. The other smiled. Neither have I. Neither Ethan nor Claire realized that a student had quietly taken a photo of the moment Ethan was comforting her. Within the hour, that single image would spread across the internet, becoming the headline that neither of them was prepared to face. Claire slowly pulled away from Ethan and wiped her eyes.
I'm sorry.
He shook his head. Please stop apologizing. I keep crying. You've been through more in 2 days than most people go through in years. She let out a shaky breath. I just hate feeling weak. Ethan smiled gently. I don't think you're weak. You don't. I think you're standing. She frowned. What do you mean? He looked down the hallway where Daniel had disappeared. Most people would have stayed home after everything that happened yesterday. Claire listened quietly. You came back to your students. They needed me. And you needed them. She thought about it for a moment. You're right. Mrs. Reynolds walked over. The police are searching the neighborhood. Claire nodded. I should probably go home. Mrs. Reynolds hesitated. Claire. She lowered her voice. I don't think that's a good idea. Claire looked confused. Why? The reporters know your address. Her heart sank. Oh, they've already been there. Claire closed her eyes. I don't even have a safe place anymore. Ethan spoke before anyone else could. You do. She looked at him. You can stay at the flower shop. Claire immediately shook her head. I've already imposed enough. My grandfather would be offended if you said no. As if on cue, Samuel walked through the school entrance carrying a small basket filled with fresh pastries. I brought lunch. Everyone turned toward him. He looked around at the tense faces. I take it I missed something. Ethan sighed. Daniel was here. Samuel's smile disappeared. He what? He got into the school. Samuel immediately looked at Claire. Did he hurt you? She shook her head. No. He quietly thanked God under his breath. Then he looked at Ethan. She's coming home with us. Claire smiled faintly. You two really don't leave much room for arguing. Samuel grinned. That's because sometimes people need help more than they need permission. 2 hours later, the internet exploded. News websites, entertainment blogs, social media, everywhere. One photograph dominated every headline. It showed Ethan holding Claire in the school hallway while she cried against his shoulder. The captions varied. America's most eligible billionaire finds love at a broken wedding. Who is the mystery teacher holding Ethan Brooks' heart?
Wedding Disasteres Parques Billionaire Romance.
Inside Brooks' global headquarters, every television displayed the same image. Board members whispered among themselves. Employees pretended not to stare. Olivia stood outside the executive boardroom holding her tablet. She looked exhausted. The doors opened. Olivia. She turned. It was Margaret Brooks. Elegant, poised, and unmistakably upset. Has my son arrived yet? No, Mrs. Brooks. Margaret glanced at the television. The photograph appeared again. She folded her arms. So it's true. Olivia answered carefully. They've spent time together. Margaret raised an eyebrow. That's a diplomatic answer. I work for your son. And I gave you your first promotion. Olivia smiled nervously. I remember. Margaret sighed. I know my son. So do I. If he's looking at that woman the way he is in that photograph. She paused. Then we're all in trouble. Olivia couldn't disagree. She had worked beside Ethan for 7 years. She had never seen him look at anyone that way. Not once. Back at the flower shop, none of them had checked the news. Samuel believed phones should be put away during dinner. Claire found herself helping him prepare fresh flowers for the next morning's deliveries. She carefully trimmed a white rose. I think I ruined it. Samuel laughed. You removed one leaf. I panicked. Flowers forgive. She smiled. I wish people did. Samuel gently placed another rose beside hers. People can. They don't always.
No.
He nodded. They don't. Claire looked at him. How long were you married? His face softened. 52 years. Her eyes widened. That's incredible. It was a gift. Did you ever fight? Samuel burst into laughter. My dear. He looked toward Ethan. Tell her. Ethan smiled. I once watched Grandpa sleep in the greenhouse. Claire blinked. Really? For 3 nights. Samuel laughed again. I deserved 1 night. Ethan grinned. It became 3. Claire couldn't help laughing. What happened? Samuel rubbed the back of his neck. I forgot our anniversary. Claire gasped dramatically. Oh no. I was busy. Ethan raised an eyebrow. You forgot on purpose?
No.
Samuel looked horrified. I simply remembered a day late. Claire smiled. And Grandma. She informed me that flowers don't fix forgotten anniversaries. They don't.
No.
He smiled fondly. But consistency does. Claire tilted her head. What do you mean? Samuel looked at the wedding band still on his finger. I brought her flowers every Friday. For 52 years? For 52 years. Claire stared at him. Even after she passed away. His voice grew quieter. I still take flowers to her. Silence filled the shop. Claire felt tears sting her eyes again. That's beautiful. Samuel smiled softly.
No.
He looked toward the window. That's love. Ethan watched his grandfather with admiration. No magazine had ever called Samuel successful. No television station had ever interviewed him. Yet Ethan had never met a richer man. That evening, after the shop had closed, Ethan stepped outside for some fresh air. The street was quiet. The flower shop sign swayed gently in the evening breeze. He heard footsteps behind him. Claire. She wrapped a light sweater around herself. I couldn't sleep. Neither could I. They stood in comfortable silence. Finally Claire spoke. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why aren't you afraid? He looked at her. Of what? People assuming we're together. He smiled. Because I know the truth. The truth. I'm helping someone who needs a friend. She lowered her eyes. And if people don't believe that? He shrugged. I've spent years worrying about what strangers think. He looked up at the stars. It gets exhausting. Claire smiled. You really are different from the man I imagined. What man was that? The billionaire from magazine covers. He laughed.
I'm disappointed.
Why? I thought I looked taller in those photos. She laughed so hard she had to cover her mouth. For the first time since the wedding, it wasn't forced. It was genuine. Ethan found himself smiling simply because she was. Neither of them noticed a camera lens hidden inside a parked car across the street. The shutter clicked. Once, twice, 3 times. Someone was photographing them in secret. And by morning, those photographs would set off a chain of events that would threaten not only Ethan's company, but also the fragile bond that had just begun to grow between 2 people brought together by one mistaken bouquet. The camera shutter clicked one final time. Inside the parked sedan, a freelance photographer lowered his lens and smiled. These are going to sell. He quickly emailed the photographs to 3 entertainment news outlets. Within minutes, bidding had begun. By sunrise, the images would be everywhere. The following morning, Ethan woke before dawn. He had always loved the quiet hours before the city came alive. He walked downstairs to find Samuel already arranging fresh tulips. I thought I was the early riser. Samuel smiled without looking up. You've never beaten me. I was hoping today would be different. It wasn't. Ethan laughed. I should have known. Samuel carefully tied a ribbon around a bouquet. You slept. A little. And Claire. I don't know. Almost as if she had heard her name, Claire slowly came downstairs. She had pulled her hair into a simple ponytail. No makeup. No jewelry. Just a peaceful smile that hadn't been there 2 days earlier. Good morning. Samuel beamed. Now it's a good morning. Claire laughed. I've noticed you're always optimistic. I've lived too long not to be. Ethan poured her a cup of coffee. How did you sleep? She wrapped both hands around the warm mug. Better than I expected. Any nightmares? She hesitated. A few. Samuel gently interrupted. They'll become fewer. She looked at him. How do you know? Because painful memories eventually stop shouting. He smiled softly. They learn to whisper. Claire nodded thoughtfully. I hope you're right. The bell above the shop door rang. A young man in a delivery uniform stepped inside carrying a large envelope. Package for Mr. Ethan Brooks. Ethan accepted it. Thank you. The delivery driver smiled awkwardly. My wife loves your grandfather's roses. Samuel laughed. Tell her I'll save the best ones for next Friday. I will. The young man left. Ethan opened the envelope. His expression immediately changed. Claire noticed. What is it? He silently handed her several glossy magazine proofs. Her eyes widened. The front page showed the photograph taken outside the flower shop the previous evening. She was smiling at Ethan. He was looking at her. The headline stretched across the page. Billionaire finds love days after stopping wedding. Another photo. Ethan gently opening the shop door for her. Another. The two of them laughing beneath the flower shop sign. Another. The hug outside the school. Claire looked horrified. They followed us. Ethan nodded. They did. Samuel quietly placed the magazines aside. Don't give strangers the power to define your story. Claire looked at him. But everyone will believe this. Some will. They'll think. She couldn't finish the sentence. Ethan answered for her. They'll think we started something before your wedding. Her eyes filled with tears. I would never. I know. You believe me? I never doubted you. Samuel smiled. Trust is choosing to believe someone before demanding proof. Claire took a deep breath. I don't know how to live with people saying things that aren't true. Ethan gave a small smile. I've had practice. Does it get easier?
No.
He answered honestly. You just stop letting it control you. At Brooks' global headquarters, the emergency board meeting had already begun. Margaret Brooks sat at the head of the table. Victoria Langford sat 2 seats away, elegant as always, perfectly composed, yet clearly annoyed. Board members whispered as another television replayed the photographs. The conference room doors opened. Ethan walked in. Every conversation stopped. He looked around calmly. Good morning. Margaret folded her hands. I wish I could say the same. Ethan took his seat. I assume this meeting isn't about quarterly earnings. One elderly board member cleared his throat.
No.
It's about your judgment. Ethan remained silent. Victoria finally spoke. I defended you. He looked at her. Thank you. I told everyone there had to be an explanation. There is. She smiled hopefully. So this teacher means nothing? The room became completely silent. Every board member waited. Margaret watched her son carefully. Ethan answered with complete honesty. I've known Claire for 3 days.
Victoria nodded.
Exactly. But, he continued, I've also learned that she's one of the kindest people I've ever met. Victoria's smile faded. Margaret closed her eyes briefly. One board member sighed. This isn't helping. Another leaned forward. The media is destroying our reputation. Ethan looked around the room. Our reputation isn't based on photographs. It affects investors. If investors lose confidence because I helped someone after her wedding collapsed, he shrugged. Then perhaps they invested in the wrong company. Several members exchanged surprised glances. Margaret spoke carefully. You're risking billions. I'm protecting someone who doesn't deserve to become tomorrow's headline. Victoria stared at him. So it's true. He frowned. What is? You're falling for her. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked out the conference room window. For the first time in years, he didn't think about stock prices, or mergers, or profits. He thought about Claire laughing while arranging flowers. He remembered the way she comforted frightened children before comforting herself. He remembered her courage inside the cathedral. Finally he spoke. I don't know what the future holds. He looked directly at Victoria. But I know pretending I don't care would be dishonest.
Victoria slowly stood.
Tears shimmered in her eyes. I spent years believing we'd end up together.
I'm sorry.
She gave a sad smile. I know. Without another word, she quietly walked out of the boardroom. The door closed behind her. No one spoke. Margaret looked at her son. When did you become this stubborn? Ethan smiled faintly. I learned from you. Despite herself, Margaret almost smiled. Almost. Back at the flower shop, Claire had decided to help with deliveries. She loaded several small bouquets into the van. Samuel handed her a clipboard. Our first stop is Rosewood Retirement Home. Claire smiled. I've volunteered there before. Then they're in for a pleasant surprise. As Ethan carried the final arrangement outside, a little boy suddenly came running down the sidewalk. He couldn't have been older than 7. Mister. Ethan knelt. What's wrong? The little boy pointed frantically across the street. My grandma! An elderly woman had collapsed near a bus stop. Without hesitation, Ethan sprinted across the road. Claire followed close behind. Several pedestrians had already gathered. The elderly woman struggled to breathe. Claire immediately knelt beside her.
I'm Claire.
The woman looked frightened. I can't. It's okay. Claire gently held her hand. You're not alone. Ethan looked at the crowd. Has anyone called an ambulance? A man raised his phone. They're on the way. The woman trembled violently. Claire spoke softly. Look at me. The woman managed to focus on her. Keep breathing with me. Ethan removed his suit jacket and carefully placed it beneath the woman's head. The little boy clung to his arm. Please don't let Grandma die. Ethan squeezed his shoulder. We're going to do everything we can. Across the street, unnoticed by any of them, another camera began recording. This time, it wasn't looking for gossip. It was about to capture something that would change the way the entire country saw Ethan Brooks. The elderly woman's breathing became even more strained. Claire kept her voice calm. Stay with me. The woman nodded weakly. I'm trying. You're doing wonderfully. The little boy buried his face against Ethan's arm. Please help her. Ethan gently rested a hand on the boy's shoulder. The ambulance is coming. It feels too long. I know. Claire looked toward Ethan. Can you check if she's wearing a medical alert bracelet? He carefully examined the woman's wrist. There. He turned it over. Diabetes. Claire nodded immediately. That explains it. The elderly woman whispered, My bag. Ethan spotted a small handbag lying a few feet away. He retrieved it carefully. Claire searched inside. There. She found a glucose gel. Mrs. Wilson. The woman looked at her. I'm going to help you. Following the instructions printed on the packet, Claire gently helped her take the glucose. Several people watched anxiously. One young woman quietly wiped away tears. An older man whispered, They know exactly what they're doing. Minutes later, the sound of sirens echoed through the street. Paramedics rushed over. What do we have? Claire quickly explained everything. The lead paramedic smiled. You probably saved her life. Claire looked relieved. I just did what anyone would have done. The paramedic shook his head. Not everyone stays. As they loaded Mrs. Wilson into the ambulance, she reached toward Claire. Thank you. Claire squeezed her hand. You'll be okay. The little boy suddenly hugged Ethan tightly. So will Grandma? Ethan smiled. She's in good hands now. The boy looked up. You're really nice. Ethan laughed. I try. The ambulance drove away. The small crowd slowly began to disperse. Neither Ethan nor Claire noticed a television cameraman lowering his equipment with a smile. Forget the gossip story. His producer looked confused. What? We've got something much better. That evening, every major news network carried the same footage. Not of Ethan hugging Claire. Not of the wedding. Instead, they showed Ethan kneeling beside a frightened little boy while Claire comforted the elderly woman. The anchor smiled. Earlier this week, Billionaire CEO Ethan Brooks made headlines after a wedding ceremony unexpectedly collapsed. The footage changed. But today, he made headlines for a very different reason. The clip showed Ethan removing his expensive suit jacket and placing it beneath Mrs. Wilson's head. Another showed Claire calmly speaking to her until paramedics arrived. The anchor continued. Witnesses say the pair remained with the family until the ambulance departed. Social media exploded. Maybe we judged them too quickly. This wasn't staged. Look at the little boy hugging Ethan. They're genuinely kind people. Even critics found themselves defending them. Inside the flower shop, Samuel turned off the television. I liked the first story better. Claire laughed. The first story? The one that nobody knew. Ethan smiled. Grandpa. What? You don't like publicity. I don't mind people seeing kindness. He looked at both of them. I just don't like people performing kindness. Claire nodded thoughtfully. I understand. Samuel smiled. I know you do. The bell above the door rang. Mrs. Jenkins walked inside carrying her phone. You two are famous. Ethan groaned. Oh no. She laughed.
No.
She held up the screen. They're calling you America's kindest billionaire. Ethan covered his face. I definitely didn't ask for that. Mrs. Jenkins winked at Claire. He looks embarrassed. Claire smiled. He really does. I've never seen a billionaire blush before. Samuel chuckled. I have. When? The first time he tried to give a flower to a girl in high school. Ethan looked horrified. Grandpa. Claire's eyes widened with amusement. You gave flowers to a girl? Samuel answered before Ethan could. He practiced his speech for 2 hours. Claire laughed. Really? Ethan sighed. I was 15. And I walked up to her. Claire leaned forward. What happened? I forgot every word. Samuel burst into laughter. He stood there holding flowers for almost a full minute. Claire laughed so hard she nearly spilled her tea. So what did you finally say? Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. I said. He hesitated. These flowers looked lonely. Claire laughed even harder. You didn't. I did. Samuel wiped tears from his eyes. The poor girl didn't know whether to laugh or thank him. Claire smiled warmly at Ethan. What happened after that? She took the flowers. And told me I was the strangest boy she'd ever met. Claire tilted her head. She wasn't wrong. He smiled. I know. For several wonderful minutes, the shop echoed with laughter. Felt normal, peaceful, like the world outside no longer existed. Until the bell rang again. A man in a dark suit stepped inside. He carried a leather briefcase. Mr. Brooks. Ethan stood. Yes. My name is Thomas Reed. He handed Ethan a business card. I'm legal counsel for the Brooks family. Ethan frowned. What happened? Thomas looked uncomfortable. I'm afraid your mother sent me. Samuel quietly sighed. I was wondering how long it would take. Thomas looked at Claire. Would you mind giving us a few minutes? Claire immediately stood. Of course. She started toward the back room. No. Thomas stopped her. This concerns you as well. She turned. Me? He nodded. I'm sorry to inform you. He carefully opened the briefcase. That someone has filed a civil lawsuit. Ethan frowned. Against who? Thomas placed the documents on the counter. Against both of you. Claire's face went pale. What? Thomas took a slow breath. Daniel Foster is suing for defamation, emotional damages, and interference with contractual relations. Silence filled the flower shop. Claire stared at the papers. He's suing me? Thomas nodded. And Ethan? Ethan picked up the documents. He forged financial records. Yes. He ran from the police. Yes. He tried to enter Claire's school. Yes. And now he's suing us? Thomas nodded again. He claims the note inside the bouquet was part of a conspiracy orchestrated by Ethan Brooks to destroy his reputation and steal his fiancée. Claire looked as though she couldn't believe what she was hearing. That's insane. Thomas answered quietly. I agree. Samuel folded his arms. So why file it? Thomas's expression became grave. Because lawsuits don't always exist to win. Everyone looked at him. They also exist. He paused. To intimidate. Ethan slowly closed the folder. His eyes became calm, almost cold. For the first time since leaving his office days earlier, the billionaire CEO resurfaced. He looked at Thomas and spoke with quiet confidence. Then it's time Mr. Foster learned something. Thomas raised an eyebrow. What? Ethan placed the lawsuit back on the counter. You should never mistake kindness. He looked toward Claire. For weakness. The determination in his voice surprised even Samuel. And although Claire had only known Ethan for a few days, she realized she was seeing a side of him that no one else had yet witnessed. The brilliant businessman who never backed down from a fight when the people he cared about were being threatened. Thomas looked at Ethan for a long moment. There he is. Ethan frowned. What do you mean? The man every corporate lawyer in the country is afraid to negotiate against. Samuel chuckled. I was wondering when he would come back. Claire looked between them. I've never seen this version of you. Ethan looked at her. I hope you don't have to very often. Why? Because this version only appears when someone I care about is in danger. The words escaped before he could stop them. Silence filled the flower shop. Claire looked into his eyes. Someone you care about? Ethan realized what he'd said. He cleared his throat. I meant. Samuel raised an eyebrow.
No.
He smiled knowingly. You meant exactly what you said. Ethan gave his grandfather a look. You're not helping. I wasn't trying to. Claire lowered her eyes, trying to hide the warmth spreading across her face. For the first time since the wedding, she felt something unfamiliar. Oh. Thomas opened another folder. There is some good news. I could use some, Claire admitted. The federal investigation into Daniel Foster is moving quickly. Ethan looked up. How quickly? They've located the accountant who wrote the warning note. Claire's eyes widened. They found him? Thomas nodded. His name is Michael Harper. What happened to him? He disappeared 3 days before your wedding. Claire covered her mouth. Oh my God. He wasn't hiding. Thomas's expression darkened. He was hiding from Daniel. Samuel quietly shook his head. So the poor man risked everything to tell the truth. Thomas nodded. He tried reporting the fraud months ago. What stopped him? Ethan asked. He received death threats. The room fell silent. Claire whispered, and he still warned me. Yes. Her eyes filled with tears. He saved my life. Across town, Daniel paced inside an expensive hotel suite. His assets had been frozen. His penthouse had been searched. He could no longer access most of his money. One of his remaining associates entered nervously. The lawsuit has been filed. Daniel smiled. Good. It won't succeed. I know. The associate looked confused. Then why? Because while everyone's focused on court, he walked toward the window. They won't notice what I'm doing next. The associate's stomach tightened. What are you planning? Daniel turned slowly. I need one thing. What? Michael Harper. The accountant? He knows where every document is. The associate frowned. I thought he'd disappeared. Daniel smiled. So did everyone else. That afternoon, Claire insisted on returning to her apartment. I need a few things. Ethan immediately shook his head. I'm coming with you. You don't have to. I know. Samuel smiled from behind the counter. And I'm coming too. Claire laughed. The two of you don't trust me to go anywhere alone. Samuel answered honestly.
No.
She couldn't even argue. 30 minutes later, Ethan parked outside her apartment building. The reporters had disappeared. Police tape still surrounded part of the entrance. Claire stared at it. I never imagined seeing my home like this. Ethan walked beside her. You don't have to stay long. I won't. The apartment was exactly as she'd left it. Half-packed honeymoon luggage stood near the bedroom door. Travel brochures still covered the dining table. A framed engagement photo sat on the bookshelf. Claire walked over. She picked it up. For several seconds, she simply stared at it. Ethan quietly looked away, giving her privacy. She smiled sadly. I remember this day. Samuel remained silent. I thought I was looking at my future. She gently removed the photograph from the frame, then tore it in half. Not angrily, not dramatically, simply, decisively. She placed Daniel's half into a trash bag, then carefully folded her own half and slipped it inside a journal. Ethan looked puzzled. You kept your half. She nodded. I don't want to erase my past. He listened quietly. I just don't want to carry him into my future. Samuel smiled. That's a very healthy way to heal. Claire looked around the apartment. I think I'm done. Already? There isn't much worth taking. She picked up a small wooden box. My mother's letters. Another box. My students' drawings. Then a worn photo album. My family. She looked at Ethan. The rest can stay. As they walked toward the door, Claire noticed a small package resting on the welcome mat. I don't remember that. There was no return address. Only her name, Claire Morgan. Ethan immediately stepped in front of her. Don't touch it. She looked confused. It's probably nothing. Maybe. Samuel nodded. Maybe not. Ethan called the building manager. Within minutes, security arrived. The guard carefully examined the package.
No guayers. No estrange smell.
He slowly opened it. Inside, there was a single white rose. Nothing else. Claire frowned. Who would send that? The security guard looked deeper into the box. There is something. He pulled out a folded card. Ethan took it first. His expression hardened instantly. Claire's heartbeat quickened. What does it say? He didn't answer. She reached for the card. Ethan. He reluctantly handed it to her. The handwritten message contained only one sentence. You were supposed to walk down the aisle with me. No one changes destiny. Claire's hands began shaking uncontrollably. Daniel. Samuel immediately took out his phone. We're calling the police. Ethan looked around the hallway. His instincts screamed that something wasn't right. He slowly stepped outside the apartment. The corridor was empty. Too empty. Then, he noticed movement near the stairwell. A man wearing a dark hoodie disappeared down the stairs. Hey! Ethan sprinted after him. The man ran. Down one flight, then another. Ethan gained ground quickly. Stop! The stranger burst through the rear exit. A black motorcycle was already waiting. He jumped on. The rider accelerated away before Ethan reached the parking lot. He memorized part of the license plate. 3 letters. 2 numbers. Not enough. He stood there breathing heavily. Whoever had delivered the rose had escaped. When he returned upstairs, Claire looked at him hopefully. Did you catch him? He slowly shook his head.
No.
She looked down at the threatening note again. I thought it was over. Ethan stepped closer.
No.
His voice was calm but firm. It's different now. She looked up. What do you mean? He held her gaze. It stopped being about a broken wedding. He gently took the note from her trembling hands. This is now about keeping you safe. Samuel quietly nodded in agreement. For the first time since this nightmare had begun, all 3 of them understood the truth. Daniel Foster wasn't simply refusing to let go. He was escalating. And somewhere in the city, Daniel watched a live traffic camera feed showing Ethan's car leaving Claire's apartment. A slow smile spread across his face. Run all you want, he whispered. Soon. He leaned back in his chair. You'll both come looking for me. The ride back to the flower shop was unusually quiet. Claire sat in the passenger seat clutching the box that held her mother's letters. The note from Daniel had been handed over to the police, but the words remained trapped in her mind. You were supposed to walk down the aisle with me. No one changes destiny. She stared out the window. What if he never stops? Ethan answered immediately. He will. How do you know? Because eventually he'll make a mistake. She looked at him. And if he doesn't? Ethan's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. Then I'll make sure he does. There was something in his voice she hadn't heard before. Determination. Cold, focused determination. Not anger. Not revenge. Protection. Samuel, sitting in the back seat, watched them quietly. He knew Ethan better than anyone. The moment Ethan decided to protect someone, he became relentless. Back at the flower shop, Thomas Reed was already waiting. The moment Ethan walked inside, the lawyer stood. I've been trying to reach you. What happened? Thomas placed several documents on the counter. We found Michael Harper. Everyone froze. The accountant? Thomas nodded. He's alive. Claire exhaled sharply. Thank God. Where is he? Thomas hesitated. That's the problem. Ethan frowned. What problem? We found him. Thomas took a slow breath. But someone else found him first. The room became silent. What happened? Claire asked. He was attacked. Her face went pale. Oh no. He's alive. Thomas quickly reassured her. But he's in the hospital. Ethan's jaw tightened. Daniel, we can't prove it. We don't have to. Thomas sighed. Actually, he handed Ethan another document. We do. Ethan looked down. His expression changed. What is this? A security report. From where? The hospital parking garage. Claire stepped closer. What does it show? Thomas looked directly at her. It shows Daniel's car entering the garage 40 minutes before the attack. Samuel slowly shook his head. He really is desperate.
No.
Thomas's expression darkened. He's becoming reckless. At the same time, Daniel sat alone inside a rented warehouse on the edge of the city. The place smelled of dust and machine oil. A folding table stood in the center. Stacks of documents covered its surface. Bank records, financial reports, charity accounts, every piece of evidence capable of destroying him permanently. He stared at them. For months he had convinced himself he could fix everything. Move money around. Silence witnesses. Buy more time. But now, the walls were closing in. His phone buzzed. A message appeared. Michael Harper survived. Daniel's face hardened. Then another. Police are interviewing him tomorrow morning. For several seconds he simply stared at the screen. Then he slowly stood.
No.
His voice echoed through the empty warehouse.
No.
He swept the entire table clean with one violent motion. Documents scattered everywhere. He's not talking. His breathing became uneven. He doesn't get to talk. The next morning, Claire was helping Samuel prepare a large wedding order. The irony wasn't lost on her. Another wedding. Samuel smiled. Love survives even when people don't deserve it. She carefully tied a ribbon around a bouquet. Do you ever get tired of weddings? Never. Why? Because every couple believes they're beginning the greatest chapter of their lives. He paused. And some of them are right. Claire smiled. You really believe in love? Samuel laughed. I spent 52 years married to my best friend. He pointed at the flowers. Of course I do. The bell above the door rang. Ethan entered carrying coffee. 3 cups. 1 for Samuel. 1 for Claire. 1 for himself. Claire accepted hers. You remembered. You always order vanilla. She blinked. You noticed. He looked confused. You've ordered the same thing every day. Samuel quietly smiled to himself. Claire smiled too. Most people don't pay attention. Most people should. Their eyes met. For a brief moment the world seemed to disappear. Then Ethan's phone rang. Olivia. His expression immediately changed. Olivia. Her voice sounded panicked. Turn on the news. Ethan frowned. Why? Now. He grabbed the remote. The television mounted near the counter flickered to life. A news anchor appeared. The headlines stretched across the bottom of the screen. Accountant attacked in hospital. Claire's stomach dropped. No. The anchor continued. Sources confirm that Michael Harper, the key witness in the Daniel Foster fraud investigation, was assaulted late last night by an unidentified individual. Samuel slowly sat down. The report continued. Hospital security footage is currently being reviewed. Claire looked horrified. He went after him again. Ethan watched silently. Then the screen changed. A blurry security image appeared. The entire flower shop froze. The image showed a man entering the hospital. Baseball cap, dark jacket, face partially visible, but recognizable. Very recognizable. The news anchor spoke again. Authorities have confirmed they are searching for former businessman Daniel Foster for questioning. Claire whispered, Oh my God. Samuel looked toward Ethan. We need to tell Thomas. Ethan nodded, already reaching for his phone. Then another headline appeared. The anchor touched her earpiece. Breaking news. Everyone looked back at the television. We're receiving reports that Daniel Foster's vehicle has been found abandoned near Riverside Industrial District. Ethan frowned. The Riverside Industrial District. He knew exactly where that was. Old warehouses, abandoned factories, almost no traffic. The anchor continued. Authorities believe Foster may be hiding somewhere within the area. Thomas answered Ethan's call. Ethan, I just saw the report. We're already coordinating with police. Do they know which warehouse?
No.
Ethan looked toward the television again, then toward Claire. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. His instinct screamed. What is it? Claire asked. Ethan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he remembered something. The note, the white rose, the motorcycle, the hospital attack, the abandoned car. None of it felt random anymore. Suddenly, his phone vibrated. Unknown number. Everyone stared. Ethan answered. Hello. For several seconds, there was only static. Then a familiar voice. Daniel. Hello, Ethan. The flower shop became silent. Ethan's expression turned cold. What do you want? Daniel laughed softly. That's the problem. His voice sounded strangely calm. Nobody asks what I want. Claire's face went pale. Ethan activated the speaker. Daniel continued. I wanted a future.
No.
Ethan's voice was firm. You wanted control. Another laugh. You think you know me? I know enough. Daniel's tone changed instantly. You stole her. Claire stepped closer. I was never yours. Silence. Then Daniel spoke again. Claire. Her heart stopped. Don't. You should have married me.
No.
I loved you. She fought to keep her voice steady.
No.
Daniel's breathing became audible through the phone. Then, something unexpected happened. He started crying. Not dramatically, not loudly, just quietly, broken. For a brief moment, everyone heard the man he used to be. Then it vanished. You have 1 hour. Ethan's eyes narrowed. For what? Daniel answered calmly. To find me. The line went silent. Then he added one final sentence. If you don't. A metallic door slammed somewhere in the background.
Michael Harperdis.
The call disconnected. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The entire flower shop seemed frozen in time. Finally Claire whispered. He has Michael. Ethan was already grabbing his keys. His expression had changed completely. The billionaire, the protector, the strategist. All three had become one. And for the first time since this nightmare began, he knew exactly where the story was heading. Straight toward Daniel Foster. Ethan was already dialing Thomas before he reached the door. Answer. The call connected. Thomas. I heard. Track the number. We already are. Anything? It bounced through multiple prepaid phones. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. I figured. There is one thing. What? Thomas's voice became more urgent. The background noise. Ethan stopped walking. What about it? Our audio team isolated it. And they heard train horns. Ethan frowned. So? And industrial ventilation fans. Samuel looked up immediately. The old freight district. Thomas continued. There aren't many active rail lines left. Ethan's mind raced. The riverside warehouses. Exactly. But there are dozens of them. Thomas sighed. I know. We're narrowing them down. I don't have time to wait. You do if you want everyone alive. Claire stepped closer. I'm coming. Ethan shook his head immediately.
No.
I'm coming. It's dangerous. So is sitting here wondering. Samuel gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Claire. She looked at him. He'll bring Michael home. She shook her head. What if Daniel wants me? Samuel didn't answer, because they all knew the truth. He did. At police headquarters, Detective Laura Bennett stood before a large city map. Red pins covered the Riverside Industrial District. 23 abandoned warehouses. 9 active. 5 under renovation. 1 currently leased. She looked at Ethan as he entered with Thomas. So, she folded her arms. You're the billionaire. Ethan extended his hand. I'm just Ethan. She shook it.
I'm Detective Bennett.
Thomas immediately got to business. Tell us. She pointed toward the map. The call lasted long enough for us to triangulate an approximate location. How approximate? Within 8 city blocks. Ethan nodded. What about the abandoned car? It was staged. You think? She smiled faintly. He wanted us looking somewhere else. Thomas frowned. So where is he? Detective Bennett pointed toward an old rail terminal. Here. Ethan studied the map. The Hawthorne Freight Depot. She nodded. It was abandoned 8 years ago. Thomas looked surprised. Still has electricity? Parts of it. And rail access? One active maintenance track. Samuel's earlier comment echoed in Ethan's mind. Train horns. Industrial fans. He looked at the detective. That's where he is. She nodded. We think so too. Meanwhile, inside the abandoned freight depot, Michael Harper sat tied to a steel support beam. His face was bruised. One eye swollen nearly shut. Daniel quietly walked toward him carrying 2 bottles of water. He opened one. You thirsty? Michael refused to answer. Daniel sighed. I always liked you. Michael laughed bitterly.
No.
You liked that I stayed quiet. Daniel crouched beside him. You could have stayed quiet. You stole from children. I borrowed money. You destroyed lives. I built opportunities. Michael stared at him in disbelief. You actually believe your own lies. Daniel's smile faded. I believe survival. Michael shook his head.
No.
I believe greed. Daniel stood. I offered you everything. You offered me a crime. I offered you wealth. You offered me prison. Daniel's expression darkened. And now, Michael looked directly into his eyes. Now I'd rather die than protect you. Daniel stared at him, then slowly nodded. I was afraid you'd say that. Back at the flower shop, Claire couldn't sit still. She paced, sat down, stood again. Samuel quietly watered flowers as though nothing unusual was happening. She finally stopped. How are you so calm? Samuel looked up.
I'm praying.
She blinked. That's it. It isn't it. He smiled. It's everything. She sat beside him.
I'm scared.
I know. What if Ethan gets hurt? Samuel looked toward the shop window. When Ethan was 8, she listened. He climbed the tallest oak tree on our farm. Claire smiled faintly. Why? He wanted to rescue a kitten. What happened? He fell. Oh no. He broke his arm. Claire covered her mouth. The kitten? Samuel smiled. The kitten climbed down by itself. Despite everything, Claire laughed. So he broke his arm for nothing? Samuel shook his head.
No.
He looked at her carefully. He learned something. What? Some people are simply born believing others are worth the risk. Claire lowered her eyes. That's Ethan. Samuel nodded. It always has been. Police vehicles quietly surrounded the Hawthorne Freight Depot.
No sirens. No flashing lights.
Detective Bennett addressed her team. We believe one hostage is inside. She looked around. Armed suspect. Several officers nodded. She turned toward Ethan. You stay behind us. I'm going in.
No.
I'm going in. Thomas sighed. I told you he'd say that. Detective Bennett folded her arms. You have no police training. I know. You could get killed. I know. You'd become another hostage. Ethan looked toward the massive warehouse. He called me. She nodded. Yes. He wants me there. Yes. So if I stay behind. He looked directly at her.
Michael Deese.
The detective didn't answer, because he was right. Finally she spoke. You don't leave my side. You have my word. Inside the warehouse, Daniel heard engines outside. He smiled. They're here. Michael looked toward him. You've already lost. Daniel ignored him. Instead, he carefully adjusted several security monitors connected to hidden cameras outside. Police, SWAT, snipers. Then, he smiled. There you are. One monitor showed Ethan stepping out of an unmarked SUV. Daniel almost looked relieved. I knew you'd come. He picked up his phone, pressed one button. Ethan's phone vibrated instantly. Another unknown number. Detective Bennett nodded. Answer. Ethan did. I'm here. I know. Daniel sounded almost cheerful. You look nervous. Ethan scanned the building. What do you want? I already told you. Michael. Daniel smiled.
No.
He paused. You. Silence. Then Daniel continued. Come inside. Detective Bennett whispered. Don't. Daniel laughed through the phone. I know she's standing next to you. Everyone froze. Tell Detective Bennett. He chuckled softly. That the west entrance is wired. The detective's eyes widened. How did he? Daniel interrupted. I can see all of you. He ended the call. Detective Bennett immediately grabbed her radio. Nobody touches the west entrance. An explosives technician sprinted toward the building. 30 seconds later. Confirmed. His voice. Daniel's thumb rested lightly on the remote. He didn't press the button. Not yet. Instead, he watched Ethan through the cracked warehouse window. You came. His voice was almost grateful. I knew you would. Behind him, Michael Harper struggled against the ropes. You don't have to do this. Daniel didn't turn around. I crossed that line a long time ago. You can still surrender. Daniel laughed. Surrender. They'll protect you. They'll imprison me. They'll give you a trial. They'll give me a life sentence. Michael quietly replied, That's still a life. For just a second, Daniel's shoulders slumped. Then the moment passed.
No.
He looked back toward Ethan. I've already chosen. Outside, the bomb technician carefully examined the west entrance. He spoke into his radio. Detective, go ahead. The suspect wasn't bluffing. What did you find? Improvised explosives. Can you disarm them? Yes. How long? The technician hesitated. 45 minutes. Detective Bennett looked at Ethan. We don't have 45 minutes. Ethan was staring at the building.
No.
We don't. His eyes moved across the old freight depot. Broken windows, rusted loading docks, collapsed roof sections. Then, he noticed something. A narrow conveyor bridge connecting the main warehouse to an old storage building. What was that building used for? Detective Bennett looked where he was pointing. The grain storage annex. Still accessible? Maybe. She called another officer. Get me the original blueprints. Within moments, an officer ran over carrying a dusty folder recovered from city archives. They spread the plans across the hood of a police SUV. Ethan traced the faded lines with his finger. There, he pointed. A maintenance tunnel. The detective leaned closer. I didn't even see that. It connects to the basement. She nodded slowly. If it's still open, it bypasses the main entrances. The detective looked at her tactical team. We're changing the plan. Inside the warehouse, Daniel's phone buzzed. One of the exterior cameras had stopped transmitting. He frowned. That's odd. He switched to another camera. Then another. Nothing unusual. Still, something felt wrong. He slowly walked toward the basement stairs. Michael watched him leave, then noticed something on the floor. One of Daniel's keys. It must have fallen from his pocket. Michael carefully stretched his foot. Just a little farther. Almost. The key scraped across the concrete toward him. He froze. Daniel stopped halfway down the stairs. Silence. Michael held his breath. After several tense seconds, Daniel continued walking. Michael exhaled slowly. Now, he just had to get the key into his hands. Claire sat in the flower shop with Samuel. The television remained muted. Every breaking news banner seemed to make her heart beat faster. She couldn't sit anymore. I have to do something. Samuel looked up from trimming roses. What? I don't know. She grabbed her phone. She scrolled through old photographs. Family, friends, students. Then she stopped. Picture of Daniel, taken nearly a year earlier. He stood beside a charity display. Behind him, a banner. Claire suddenly sat upright. Samuel, what is it? This picture. He walked over. What about it? She zoomed in. Behind Daniel was a warehouse sign. Hawthorne Freight Cooperative. Samuel frowned. So? Claire looked closer. There. A faded emergency evacuation map hung on the wall. Most of it was blurry, except one section, a handwritten note. She enlarged the image. Old boiler access. Her eyes widened. The basement. Samuel immediately understood. You think. He showed me this place. She was already dialing Ethan. He brought me there during a charity event. The phone connected. Ethan. Claire. I know another way inside. Detective Bennett took the phone. This is Detective Bennett. Claire spoke quickly. There's an old boiler entrance behind the south loading platform. The detective looked at the blueprint. There isn't. It wasn't on public maps. Claire shook her head. They renovated part of it for charity tours. The detective's eyes widened. It was sealed afterward.
No.
Claire answered firmly. I remember Daniel saying they never finished sealing it because it was too expensive. The detective immediately turned to her officers. South platform. They've got another entrance. Meanwhile, Michael finally managed to hook the key ring with his shoe. Slowly, painfully, he lifted it toward his bound hands. One key, then another. He couldn't see which one fit. His fingers shook. Come on, please. The first key didn't work. The second didn't either. Footsteps echoed upstairs. Daniel was coming back. Michael swallowed hard. One more key. It slid into the lock. He turned it. Click. The handcuffs opened. He immediately left the ropes hanging exactly as they were. Just as Daniel re-entered the room, Daniel smiled. They're changing tactics. Michael forced himself to remain perfectly still. How do you know? They've moved to the south side. He laughed softly. I wondered how long it would take. Michael stared. You expected that? Daniel smiled. I planned for it. Outside, the tactical team quietly entered the hidden boiler tunnel. Detective Bennett. 3 officers. Ethan. The narrow passage smelled of rust and damp concrete. Flashlights cut through the darkness. One officer whispered, This tunnel hasn't been used in years. The detective nodded. Stay sharp. They moved deeper underground. Then, a faint metallic sound echoed ahead. Ethan stopped. Did you hear that? Everyone froze. Another sound. A single click. The bomb technician's voice suddenly exploded over the radio. Detective. She grabbed it. Go. We've detected additional wiring beneath the building. Her heart sank. How extensive? The reply came instantly. The entire basement is rigged. Every officer looked around in horror. They were already inside it. The detective whispered, Nobody move. But above them, Daniel looked at the security monitor showing the tunnel. He smiled. They found it. He slowly lifted the remote again. This time, his thumb moved toward the button. Let's see who reaches Michael first. The tiny red light on Daniel's remote blinked once. Twice. His thumb hovered over the button. Then, he stopped.
No.
He smiled to himself. Too easy. He slipped the remote back into his pocket. If Ethan Brooks wants to be the hero, he looked toward the security monitor. He'll have to earn it. Deep beneath the warehouse, Detective Bennett held up her hand. Nobody moves. Every officer froze. The bomb technician's voice crackled through the radio again. The pressure sensors haven't been triggered. So we're safe. For now. For now. One officer whispered. The suspect can activate portions of the system remotely. Ethan looked around the damp tunnel. Which means he wants us alive. Detective Bennett nodded. Exactly. He wants to control where we go. She looked directly at Ethan. And we're going to stop letting him. She pointed toward another passage. The maintenance shaft. One officer checked the blueprint. It leads beneath the main warehouse. Let's move. They advanced carefully through the narrow corridor. The sound of dripping water echoed around them. Every step felt louder than the last. Upstairs, Michael Harper kept his wrists hidden behind his back. The ropes still appeared tight. Daniel paced the room. You know what disappoints me? Michael stayed silent. I really believed Claire would choose me. You wanted her to belong to you. Daniel stopped walking. What's the difference? Michael looked at him. Love doesn't imprison people. For the first time, Daniel looked uncertain. You think I never loved her? I think you loved control. Daniel looked away. When I was a kid, his voice became strangely distant. My father used to say that if you wanted to keep something, you had to hold it tightly. Michael answered quietly, and what happened when you held it too tightly? Daniel closed his eyes. It broke. Silence settled between them. For one brief moment, the anger disappeared. The frightened little boy Daniel used to be surfaced. Michael spoke gently. It's not too late. Daniel looked at him. It isn't.
No.
You can still surrender. You think they'll forgive me?
No.
Michael answered honestly. But maybe one day. He paused. You'll forgive yourself. Daniel's eyes filled with emotion. Before he could respond, a faint metallic noise echoed beneath the floor. His head snapped toward the sound. They're here. Detective Bennett stopped beneath a rusted metal hatch. She whispered, This leads directly into the warehouse. One officer slowly inserted a fiber optic camera through a crack. Everyone watched the tiny monitor. Michael, tied to a steel column. Daniel pacing nearby. No other hostages, the officer whispered. Detective Bennett nodded. Perfect. Ethan quietly asked, Can you reach Michael first? The officer studied the monitor. Maybe. But Daniel is too close. Another officer leaned in. He has a clear line of sight. Detective Bennett thought for several seconds. Then she smiled. I have an idea. She looked at Ethan. When that hatch opens. He nodded before she finished. I distract him. You don't have a weapon. I don't need one. She looked into his eyes. You understand this could get you killed. I understand. She saw complete certainty. Finally, she nodded. On my signal. Inside the warehouse, Daniel walked toward Michael again. So, he smiled. Let's see if your hero arrives. A loud metallic clang echoed behind him. The floor hatch burst open. Police! Daniel spun around. At that exact moment, Ethan climbed through the opening. I'm here. Daniel laughed. I knew you'd come. He pulled a pistol from beneath his jacket. Officers immediately raised theirs. Drop the weapon. Daniel ignored them. Instead, he pointed the gun directly at Ethan. Claire's voice suddenly echoed through Ethan's mind. Please come back. Samuel's words followed. Some people are born believing others are worth the risk. Ethan slowly raised his hands.
I'm unarmed.
I know. You don't have to do this. Daniel smiled sadly. Everyone keeps saying that. It's true. You think you understand me?
No.
Ethan answered calmly. I understand pain. Daniel laughed bitterly. You? My father died when I was 17. Daniel's expression shifted slightly. I spent years believing success would fill that hole. Silence. It didn't. Daniel's grip weakened almost imperceptibly. You still had everything. I had money. Ethan took one careful step forward. Not peace. You have Claire.
No.
Ethan shook his head. I have someone I care about. Same thing.
No.
Another step. The difference is. He looked directly into Daniel's eyes. I'd rather lose Claire than force her to stay. Those words hit Daniel like a punch. His arm trembled. You'd let her leave? If that's what made her happy. Michael quietly watched. He saw tears forming in Daniel's eyes. You don't mean that.
Ido.
Another step. Love isn't possession. Daniel's breathing became uneven. I gave her everything. You gave her gifts. I gave her a future. You chose it for her. Daniel looked completely lost.
No.
His voice cracked. I was protecting her.
No.
Ethan answered softly. You were protecting yourself. The warehouse fell silent. Even the officers remained perfectly still. Daniel's gun slowly lowered. Just a few inches. Detective Bennett whispered. Now. Before anyone could move, a loud crash echoed from the far side of the warehouse. One of Daniel's frightened accomplices, hiding behind stacked crates, accidentally knocked over a metal barrel. Daniel instinctively turned. The accomplice panicked. He fired one wild shot. The bullet ricocheted off a steel beam. Everyone hit the ground. The accomplice bolted toward a side exit. Daniel shouted, "Stop!" But it was too late. The frightened man slammed into an unstable electrical panel. Sparks exploded. The damaged wiring ignited old insulation near the ceiling. Within seconds, flames began spreading across the dry wooden rafters. Smoke poured through the warehouse. Detective Bennett shouted, "Fire!" Officers rushed toward Michael. Ethan sprinted after Daniel, who stood frozen beneath the growing flames. "Daniel!" Daniel looked up. Burning debris crashed onto the floor between them. For one terrifying second, neither man could reach the other, and above them, the old warehouse roof groaned loudly as it began to collapse. The burning rafters creaked overhead. A massive wooden beam crashed to the floor, sending sparks flying in every direction. "Everybody out!" Detective Bennett shouted. Two officers reached Michael Harper. One cut the remaining ropes while the other helped him to his feet. "I can walk," Michael coughed. "Good. Then let's move." They hurried toward the tunnel entrance. Smoke rapidly filled the warehouse. Visibility dropped to only a few feet. Daniel remained frozen. He stared at the flames as though he had stopped seeing them. His shoulders sagged. His gun slipped from his hand and clattered across the concrete. "It's over," he whispered. Ethan was only a few yards away. "Daniel!" Daniel looked at him through the smoke. "I never wanted this." "I know."
No.
Daniel shook his head. "You don't." Another beam crashed down. The floor shook violently. Ethan reached him just as part of the roof collapsed behind them. "Come on." Daniel didn't move. "I deserve this." Ethan grabbed his arm. "No one deserves to die like this." Daniel pulled away. "You should leave." "I'm not leaving you." "Why?" Ethan looked him straight in the eye. "Because saving people isn't something I only do when they're easy to save." Daniel stared at him. For the first time since they had met, he truly saw the man standing in front of him. Not the billionaire. Not the rival. Simply, a good man. Tears rolled down Daniel's soot-covered face. "I ruined everything." "You did." "I hurt Claire." "You did." "I destroyed people's lives." "You did." Daniel lowered his head. "So why are you still here?" Ethan answered without hesitation. "Because if I leave you now," he tightened his grip, "I'll become someone I never want to be." Another explosion echoed from the back of the warehouse. Detective Bennett's voice came through the smoke. "Ethan, we're out of time." Ethan pulled again. "This is your last chance." Daniel closed his eyes. Then, very slowly, he nodded. "I don't want to die." "Then let's go." Together they ran. A burning beam crashed behind them. Another fell ahead. Ethan shoved Daniel aside just before it struck the ground. The impact knocked Ethan onto the concrete. His shoulder slammed hard against the floor. "Ethan!" Daniel shouted. Without thinking, Daniel turned back. He grabbed Ethan beneath the arms. "Come on." Ethan looked surprised. "You came back." Daniel's voice broke. "You did." The two men stumbled toward the tunnel. Just as they reached the entrance, the warehouse roof collapsed behind them with a deafening roar. The blast of heat threw them both forward. Detective Bennett and two officers pulled them the rest of the way into the tunnel. "Move!" They hurried through the passage as smoke chased them from behind. Seconds after everyone reached the outside, the entire center of the warehouse caved in. Flames shot into the evening sky. Firefighters rushed forward. Paramedics surrounded Michael. Another team checked Ethan's injured shoulder. Claire's car screeched to a stop beyond the police line. She jumped out before anyone could stop her. "Ethan!" An officer tried to block her. "You can't." Detective Bennett raised a hand. "Let her through." Claire ran straight to Ethan. The moment she saw the soot covering his face and the blood on his sleeve, Tears filled her eyes. You scared me.
I'm okay.
She looked at his shoulder. You're hurt. I'll survive. She didn't say another word. She simply threw her arms around him. He held her tightly. For several seconds, neither of them cared that dozens of officers were watching. Samuel arrived moments later. He smiled quietly. I was wondering how long they'd keep pretending. Detective Bennett looked at him. Pretending? Samuel chuckled. They've been in love for days. Claire pulled back just enough to look at Ethan. You went back for him. He nodded. I couldn't leave him, even after everything he did? He still had a choice left. Daniel, now handcuffed and sitting beside a police cruiser, overheard every word. He lowered his head. As officers led him toward the vehicle, he stopped. Claire. She turned.
I'm sorry.
She looked at him for a long moment. I believe you mean that.
I do.
She nodded gently. I forgive you. Daniel's eyes widened. But forgiveness, she continued, doesn't erase consequences. He gave a small, broken smile. I know. For the first time in years, he stopped fighting. He quietly entered the police car. The door closed. As the vehicle drove away, Ethan slipped his hand into Claire's. She looked down at their hands, then back up at him. I almost married the wrong man. Ethan smiled softly. And I almost delivered flowers to the wrong bride. She laughed through her tears.
No.
She squeezed his hand. You delivered them to exactly the right one. Samuel wiped a tear from the corner of his eye. I've spent 53 years arranging flowers. He looked at the evening sky. And today I finally learned. Claire and Ethan turned toward him. That sometimes the most beautiful arrangements begin with a mistake. 6 months later, the courthouse was packed. Michael Harper's testimony exposed every fraudulent transaction. The evidence was overwhelming. Daniel Foster pleaded guilty to multiple financial crimes, witness intimidation, kidnapping, and related offenses. Claire's name was completely cleared. The civil lawsuit against her and Ethan was dismissed. The school board publicly apologized and welcomed Claire back with a celebration organized by her students. Outside the school, 23 children rushed toward her carrying handmade paper flowers. One little voice shouted, "We told everyone our teacher was the best." Claire laughed as they surrounded her. Across the street, Ethan watched with Samuel. I understand now. Samuel smiled. What? Why she loves teaching. Samuel nodded. And it's because she changes lives without asking for anything in return. Samuel looked at his grandson.
Sounds familiar.
Ethan smiled. Maybe I learned from the best. Samuel handed him a bouquet. White roses, white lilies, and orchids. The same flowers Ethan had accidentally delivered months earlier. I think these belong to someone. Ethan looked at the bouquet and laughed. I hope I get the address right this time. He crossed the street. Claire turned as he approached. You brought flowers. I did. She smiled. Are they for the right bride this time? He took a slow breath. They're for the woman I love. He knelt on one knee. The children gasped. Samuel smiled from across the street. Ethan looked into Claire's eyes. The first bouquet changed both our lives by accident. He opened a small velvet box. I'd like the next one to begin our future on purpose. Tears filled Claire's eyes. Claire Morgan. He smiled. Will you marry me? She laughed through happy tears. You finally got the delivery right. Is that a yes? She nodded eagerly. Yes. Yes. She threw her arms around him as cheers erupted from the children, teachers, parents, and everyone gathered outside the school. Samuel quietly looked toward the sky. I hope you saw that, my love. He smiled. Our grandson found the right bride after all. And it all began with one bouquet that was delivered to the wrong wedding, but somehow found exactly the right heart. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming romance stories, and let us know in the comments. Do you believe that one unexpected mistake can completely change a person's destiny? Until the next story, thank you for watching.